Veterans of Reddit, was it worth it? Why or why not? Professionally, yes, absolutely. Personally, not so much. Makes you difficult to relate to socially. Always on edge and anxious, at least I am 6 years out. But having it in your resume and being able to talk about your management and military experiences does help get jobs. Yes. Imagine being in some of the most dangerous places and situations in the world and not even having to question if the people with you wouldn't give their own lives to save yours. It's a kind of relationship you seldom find outside of the military, and TBH, it's addicting as fuck. I practically went through emotional withdrawals when I left. I'd gladly re-enlist just so I could be surrounded by that kind of quality again. This is not to say the army was awesome. Matter of fact, as an institution the army blows donkey dick. The people in it, however, are something else. Part of the reason fat bodies and shitbags get fucked with so much. If I have to even question if you can do your job and you refuse my help, I don't want you near me. Not worth it. The military is an entirely different ball game for most women who serve than it is for men. It took me literal decades to untangle and understand the resentment, anger, hate, aggression, violence and sabotage I experienced when I was serving. It was a nearly daily thing. It was heartbreaking, confusing and terrifying, 24/7 to serve alongside men who didn't want me there and who made it clear to me every day I was a liability, no matter how I excelled or how well I did my job. When you are enlisted, you often are housed with the people you work with, so you don't walk out the door at 5 p.m. and leave it all behind, so to speak, either. The people you work with are the people you live side by side with. I survived experiences I'll take to my grave and will never speak of. I often wish I hadn't survived. All therapy in the world just peels back layers and layers of PTSD and trauma and pain. A lot of my time in service I don't remember. I only remember the feelings, fear, the terror and the grief of not being accepted. So, it was not until around Christmas of 2018 that I stumbled upon something that helped me understand the mindset of combat personnel in particular. I was watching Free Solo, the story of professional rock climber Alex Honnold. He has created a life and community deeply invested in chasing the next big feat of rock climbing, often with nothing more than a rope between him and death. In the documentary about him, he climbs the face of El Capitan without a harness or assistance. It's astonishing. What I learned about the culture of military was related to how this small band of brothers, rock climbers, have a life bond with one another. They rely on each other to ensure their gear is safe to use and to ensure the lines don't get tangled, they are not damaged, etc. Literal life and death stuff. There was a scene where Alex meets Sandy McCandless, an amazing woman climber. They fall in love and she joins him on his touring and is deeply invested in his quest to conquer El Cap. His friends immediately notice that a new dynamic is at play with a woman on the team. They are now constantly aware of their mortality. Being in love and being cared for creates a responsibility for others that has no place in a life and death culture. There is no room for distraction or concern for someone of the opposite sex who men instinctively have a drive to protect. I fully understood where the resentment and weird love-hate dynamic that was so punishing and torturous in the military came from. Men do not, quite often, wish to think about their mortality when at war. A woman at the side of a man in combat tips that dynamic dangerously. There is a distracting urge to protect women battle buddies that creates a strong antagonism and hate. It took that documentary for me to understand where the aggression towards me in the military came from. That dynamic destroyed me. I'm not the person I was when I enlisted. It's been hard to forgive myself the things I never could have known before enlisting that would have kept me out of the USMC. I'm getting there though, slowly, a bit better every day. Peace. Yeah, it was worth it. Like many of others have said, some of the best and worst times of your life in the military. I have friends now I've known 20 years and who I still talk to regularly, guys closer to me than my family. I have a wonderful home that I didn't have to drop a down payment on. My schooling was covered and I have healthcare for free for the rest of my life. Leadership experience, conflict resolution, world culture exposure. I also have dreams of the mass grave site we unearthed. That little girl's skeleton bound with wire and a bullet hole in her skull. I think a lot about the times when I should have been dead. I'm angry all the time even after a lot of free counseling and medication. I know I'll probably get some sort of weird cancer from the toxic shit we were exposed to. I don't trust large crowds and I like to leave parties early. I don't feel bad every day, some are worse than others. I have a good support system. Overall I'm happy with my life and wouldn't change it. Knowing what I know now I'd still probably do it again. It wasn't what I thought it was or what I was told. I enjoyed it when I was in though. I was told fairly often that 70% of the people I'd meet I'd hate. 30% would be the best friends I could ask for. I worked my ass off and when I got out I couldn't believe how hard it was to readjust. I lost everything after I got out. 2 friends I made while I served were the only people to reach out to me after I left. They helped in a way. I am back on track but I've quickly found that the benefits are a joke. The GI Bill hardly covers flight school and I make a few grand over the limit to get VA health coverage. I take pride in serving but I tell very few what I did. It just seems to be insignificant to them. All the missed holidays, and times I didn't get to see my family grow, nobody gets that. We suck it up and move on though. Some of us carry more weight than we can handle. I guess that's where the 22 a day comes in. It's been worth it. Experience is the purpose to my life. Navy. I got to travel internationally to places I would otherwise never have gotten to see. I met a lot of people, some of whom were really cool, some of whom were absolute shit, and most of whom were just normal. I've nearly fallen off a ship. It would have been 50 feet to a concrete pier, stood armed watches in the Gulf, anthemed, and all over the world's oceans, really, been in a Mexican standoff against an unhinged shipmate, nearly got stranded in Hawaii, worse than it sounds, almost got lost in the UAE while absolutely shit-faced, been propositioned by Somalian and Singaporean hookers, and have witnessed, and participated in, all manner of drunken debauchery with all manner of debauched drunkards. The GI Bill allowed me to go to school without having to have a job. I used the money on rent instead of tuition. Dumb, I could have moved back in with my folks and paid no rent, and then wouldn't be in debt now. But I was stubborn as fuck, and as a veteran I have access to healthcare that I otherwise couldn't afford. On the other hand, I also have ridiculous standards for professional behavior. I'm utterly impatient with people who exhibit even the slightest bit of incompetence, and have serious anger management issues, especially where communication difficulties and employee mismanagement are concerned. It's hard to make friends with non-veterans, and mentioning that I am a vet seems to put people off. All in all, a mixed bag. I don't regret having enlisted, but I wouldn't do it again. My initial decision to join, yes. Re-enlisting for the 3rd time. No. If you aren't having the time of your life by the end of your first contract but still on the fence, give it another 3 years. If nothing's changed, get out. Don't waste 10 years of your life and then decide you don't want to get the retirement. I've made excellent friends, had kick-ass experiences, and traveled the world while getting paid, but I've also missed important milestones in my children's lives, and my used to be good friends are now awkward acquaintances. It's hard to relate to people on the civilian side after a while. You kind of end up being institutionalized. Somehow you end up with a strange fear of life outside of the military. Mostly due to the fact that everything you've known for years has been dictated down to the tiniest detail. However, a single contract for a free bachelor's degree and tons of life experience is a solid deal. Love it or hate it, it's hard to not come out on top after one contract.